that we don't need to be in person to provide really personal touch.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mutually Human podcast. On this podcast, our goal is to have casual yet meaningful discussions about how to make technology more human. As always, I'm here with the president of Mutually Human, Mark Van Holstein, but today is a special podcast because we have our very first guest with us here today. Welcome to Danielle Bouwhuis. Did I get your last name right?
You got it.
All right.
Not hard.
It's hard to say. It's pronounced so differently than it's spelled.
It's true.
All right, Danielle, welcome. Like I said, thank you very much for being our very first guest. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, born and raised here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Not too exciting. I was a former educator before I went into the business world and started at Become Unmistakable. So I have that background. Also have a master's in ed. So have a little bit of technology background in the education realm, but also as a tech specialist director at local high school. Have 3 kids and a husband, and life is pretty good.
Is life still pretty good despite being trapped inside at the moment?
Yes, because the weather is finally turning.
Yes, it was a good day. Nice day out today.
Sure.
So we've worked with Danielle for, how long have we worked with Danielle for, Mark?
Yeah, it's got to be last couple of years for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we were working with Become Unmistakable when you actually started there, your first day.
Yeah.
So we're familiar with Become Unmistakable, but when somebody asks you what your organization does, how do you describe Become Unmistakable to people?
So we really have a few different things that we offer. So we really focus on leadership development. So we have courses and a whole leader path that people can follow and take and become, really a right-brained leader, focusing on people. But we also have a software tool called UMAP. So we really like to talk about how we honor the human in everyone. So, goes really well with Mutually Human. But we really focus on the individual and how this individual can bring their whole selves to work and be honored in both the professional and personal way. So that's what we focus on as an organization.
I know BU is definitely focused on human connection, like you just said. So curious, during this time that we're in right now, what are things that you guys are doing as a team to make sure that you're staying connected with each other?
So we have been meeting, we're always meeting and collaborating. We're a smaller team, so that's kind of at the heart of what we do with everything. But we've really been using our own UMAP tool, something that we've built with you guys, to foster deeper connection even through this time. We're learning a lot about people. We're coming up with different ways to connect, even though we're not together physically. And that has actually grown our team, I would say, exponentially over the last few weeks of this quarantine stay-at-home business. So we just do different things. Like we did a BU cribs the other day. And Lori, I think we kind of spoke about this before. We took our laptops around our houses and we did have a little bit of notice, but it was super authentic. And we try to find things that are fun and, connected and, show people's real selves as comfortable as they are with that, of course. So,
what was the most interesting thing you found in someone's house from your little tours?
Okay. So I don't know about that. I don't know. Rob's house is pretty cool because it has a lot of features that are really old and really cool, like architecture wise and like design wise. So yeah. That was cool. I don't know if we have anything like super weird, but we have been doing like BU happy hours too, where we find like the weirdest thing in our fridge or the oldest thing. Someone had something from 1995.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
That's awesome.
That is 25 years old. That is intense. Yes. What was it? Do you remember?
It was baking soda. Pete had baking soda from, and obviously it had moved with him from like house to house to house. So
that's what I find crazy because I can't compete with a 1995 date, but we did the same thing because we moved here to Grand Rapids in 2016 And yesterday I was looking for frosting, and I pulled out this frosting, and it was from like 2006. And I was like you said, this means we moved this little jar of frosting to 2 different houses. Who packs that up?
I know. So yeah, we've just been doing different stuff like that, really trying to be creative and use, what we know about people and their comforts and some of their fun, characteristics. That really came from Brittany, who is she's our brand designer, but she really is a pastry chef at heart. She went to Le Cordon Bleu. So like we were trying to think of different things to honor people on our team. So cool. It was fun.
Very cool. Can you talk a little bit about your role? I know since we've been working with you, your role has definitely shifted, grown, changed through the years. What are you currently doing? What's your current focus at BU?
So as always, I always have a hand in the software development stuff that we do and try to manage that between you guys and Rob, one of the founders. So in our team, and just updating and keeping things current and fresh. So I do that. And then I also have moved into the client service role. And we're trying to, of course, come up with an unmistakable name for that. But really developing that process, what it looks like, taking care of our people, providing support in whatever way we can. And I also support some of our training aspects that we do around the UMAP tool and rollout in organizations.
Okay. And one of the main topics we wanted to talk with you about, knowing that this is part of your focus right now, is onboarding, training, and supporting users. So let's talk first about onboarding. What is your process right now at BU when you have new users, and how are you onboarding those new users?
So, it really depends on if they select training or not, but most people do, just because of the nature of our software tool. It's not about the ease of use, because the tool is extremely easy to use. It's more about, what lives behind that, why, the whys. So we like to make sure people are, first welcomed with open arms. We usually send a handwritten note to onboard people. I am always meeting with them either one-on-one or with one of our client advisors to answer any questions before that process starts, to guide them through that, the sign-up process, all that good stuff. And then, of course, we send out training materials if they choose, that, they're not ready for training right now, or they need to get a head start before training's available. And then, they're always invited to attend training with us, and we've been doing those virtually. Even though we can't do it in person right now. So definitely just as effective. So we do that, and, that's kind of, and then we send them on a path of, sending out some weekly emails and reminders and things to get started, and tips and tricks. And, we've got a manager's playbook. So we've got a lot of material that we offer and can set them up with, so that they're feeling really successful from the start.
Good. What challenges have you seen I'm sure you've learned a ton since you began onboarding users. What are some of the challenges you've seen or things you've learned along the way?
I think always put your users first. And I think that we always have done that. But really taking a look at how they experience it from the very first time that they see or touch or hear about your tool. Through the whole process, through the whole onboarding process and beyond, making sure that they stay supported. And I don't know that there's been any specific challenges. I think the one thing that this whole COVID thing has shown us is that, we were really pushing users to try to come to us and be trained. And, we would do the one-off, training, for anyone who couldn't make it to one of those days. But what we've learned is we don't need to do that. And I think that the biggest challenge was getting people to us and traveling from wherever. And now I think COVID has just exposed the fact that we don't need to be in person to provide really personalized, personal touch training. So I think that's the one challenge that it has brought to light. And I don't know that we were seeing that challenge before.
Yeah.
What do you think was why did you feel like you needed to be in person? And what have you seen with the COVID that you have this revelation?
Because, our product is really all about people. And so having the personal connection and the personal interactions with one another, we find a high value. And I think that we still do. But I think because Zoom and Skype and Microsoft Teams and all those things are highly attainable tools to use, we can do that just as easily. And actually, we were running classes of this before, and we're actually able to address unique challenges or questions in a way that we weren't able to before. So I think we struggled with thinking that it wasn't going to be as impactful or as special. And I don't feel that at all anymore after kind of being forced into this.
So question, how do you ride the bike virtually?
We haven't done that virtually. That is interesting. That's a part of our, Unmistakable Leader program. And I'm actually in the Unmistakable Leader program right now. And, we're hoping to get back to the point where we're all together. So that would definitely be something that we would save for an in-person meeting. So I don't know. Because I never tried to ride the bike.
You haven't tried it yet?
Never. Well, no, because when we first got the bike and everything, I was pregnant and I wasn't going to get on that thing.
Oh yeah.
And
so
then
you tried it, right?
Yeah, I did. So BU has this bike that they've custom made so that the front handlebars, normally you turn the handlebars right and you turn right and you turn left and you go left. And they've rigged it up such that when you turn right, the wheel turns left. And when you turn left, the wheel turns right. And so, it sounds like, okay, cool. Like I can make that switch. I know how to ride a bike. That's easy. I just need to turn the opposite way. No big deal. But your brain is so hardwired to ride a bike the way you're supposed to ride a bike that it is extraordinarily difficult to ride a bike that does not go the right way. There's a great video on YouTube somewhere that we'll add in the show notes that has a guy who I think he spent weeks or months training on this bike.
2 weeks. 2 weeks. Actually, it took him solid weeks learning how to ride the bike the opposite way.
Yep. And he got pretty decent at it. And I think what was funny is then he tried to go back to riding a bike normally.
Yeah.
And that was a big struggle. He had rewired his brain to ride this backwards bike. And now it took him some time to move back to a normal bike. So that's great.
Wow.
No, Danielle, one of the things you talked about, I think that's really good to point out here is the onboarding, really any of these experiences in for software tools. It's not just about the tool itself. It's onboarding them as a customer. And there's a lot of touch points that they have with your organization. That's not just here's where I go to the sign up form and fill in my information and get in and start using the tool. But it's how do I do that one-on-one training with folks? How do I do that connecting with support? How do I do all those other kinds of touch points that I have with the software that aren't just the tool itself?
Yeah. And I think what Danielle mentioned with the why too, why is that important, right? And what value will that bring me if I engage with this tool?
Yeah.
All right, so speaking of training on a bike, let's talk about training with the UMAP tool. So what training materials do you have now?
Oh, we have all the materials. So Jody DeRue, who is our director of learning. She is quite possibly one of the most amazing people that I've ever worked with. We really started working together and put training together in probably a month. So she onboarded January of 2019, and within a month we were running our first training. And at that point, we were really focusing on, the user experience. How are we making things as easy as possible? If people have a question, how do they know how to add users? How do they know how to do that kind of stuff? And then furthering the discovery into why are they asking me to fill this information out? Why do I need to, tell them what my superpowers are? Why do they care what my best day is? So really trying to allow them to experience that within the training was also really important, and making it interactive so that enough so that they go back and they feel that they can do some of these things on their own, of course, with a guide. So, we've got a lot of different training materials, and really they were all built with Microsoft Office tools that we didn't use any sort of design materials except for, we were talking earlier about InDesign. So they were pretty much, we didn't have a designer then. We didn't have Brittany. We didn't have a brand leader, none of that. So we did it all within Microsoft Office. And if you have a whiz on your team like Jody, she can literally make anything look beautiful with very, small amount of resources.
You mentioned Jody being one of your favorite people. I assume she's like at least third on the list, second to me, and then Mark. Okay. I just want to make sure. How did you and Jody decide what to include and what not to include? Like what's the level of depth in that training, in those training materials?
So really we wanted them to be able, so kind of taking the bird's eye view approach of being a new client and not understanding the software. And Jody had a really great perspective in that because she was actually a new user. So I would definitely recommend having that perspective because when you live and breathe the tool or application or whatever you're using, it's really hard to see outside of that. So, making sure we're including everything to make it as easy as possible as a reference for these people to go back and see that, we've covered this. Here's a little tip about this. Here's how you do this. You should start here. So we've included all of those types of things. But then, Jody and her background with training and development really knows a lot about how to build effective training and within the adult learning cycle. So, I would say that that's really, really impactful because if you've ever sat through something, I call them sit and gets. When you do a sit and get and you don't have any interaction and you're not engaging in any sort of way, you're going to leave feeling pretty empty. So keeping those things in mind, people engaged, interactive, equipping people with, activities and materials to leave and feel successful right when they get back to their workplace is going to be super important.
What is the sit and get?
A sit and get? So that comes from the teaching world. When I was a teacher, we would have professional development days and we would sit there and they would just tell all day long. And
okay.
You just take notes and then you leave and you've got all these sheets of paper that you never look at again because you sat there all day completely unengaged, not talking to anyone around you, not connecting, not feeling or experiencing anything. And those are not formulating neural pathways in your brain, some of the brain science that goes along with our tool, to remember and keep that information. So that's a sit and get.
How much of the training that you guys offer to your clients is, in person or Zoom, this sort of like one-on-one or one-on-many group settings versus, pre-recorded or pre-developed documents that they consume on their own at their own pace?
I would say 90% of our training is done through this type of fashion or in person. We have very few people who just take the admin guides that we provide, some of the material that we have that tells you how to do things. We have very few people that don't engage in some fashion in our original onboarding training or within our managers, teaching them performance conversations or leader or whatever. So very, very few people.
What about for the level down, the actual, all of the employees at the companies that you work with and their team members who actually fill out all the UMAPs? What kind of training or insights do they get from you guys?
So when we sit down with the admin or people in the software that are going to be using the account, and mostly for our tool, it's HR people or, champions, internal champions within the organization. We have trained those people to go back and be able to deliver this and have the material and the communication pieces and feel equipped enough to run this down the organization. So that's kind of how it works on our end. So almost a train the trainer model.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Train the trainer.
Train the trainer.
I love that. All right.
Have there been anything that you've developed that you, after getting out there and using it with people, you've said, this doesn't actually work right, and we've had to like reverse course and try something else?
In terms of training materials?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to think about that a little bit more. We've revised our training based on feedback from others to try to make it more engaging, or, people are wanting a little bit more instruction on this. So we've made things into activity cards that they can take and download. So I think we've learned a lot there in terms of what kinds of material people are looking for and what they're feeling either not as successful leaving with in training people. So I think that we've developed a lot more material that we can send them or send with them digitally so that they can use with their end users.
Awesome.
All right, so let's move on to the third topic, which is support. So how do you manage support in terms of your UMAP tool specifically?
Well, it's a beautiful thing what we've done and how we've developed it, because really support is managed by me right now, and that's it. So anyone that reaches out on support@myumap.com, that email goes directly to my inbox. There's a few other people who are cross-trained in our organization, but I am the person, and the simple way of answering the questions, our tool is built so effectively that they really don't have many issues other than sometimes not knowing how to get their password if they're entering their email in incorrectly. And a lot of it is user error. I think there may have been a few times when, something wasn't maybe populating after on the UMAP, but it's been very few and far between. Honestly, I don't even think an hour a week supporting our tool.
Do you think that going into this process, you guys, what was your expectation of what support would look like? Do you think that it's easier than you thought it'd be, harder than you thought it'd be?
Definitely easier. At first I was thinking that, like, I'm not really sure how I'm going to support all these users that we're going to have on a frequent basis. I'm going to be spending all my time answering emails or being on the phone with them. And in reality, because the tool is so easy to use, we don't have a lot of issues. It's very straightforward. They follow a path. It's pretty intuitive. It's designed very well. So we don't have a lot of issues. So I would definitely say so much simpler. Thank goodness for that.
I think that's definitely an area where we hear a lot from customers of, like, a lot of nervousness about, like, going into this, building a product space and being nervous about understanding, like, how am I going to support this thing? Like, what are we going to do? Are you guys going to be there for us? Like, what if we run into trouble? And I think that is definitely a big, scary part for a lot of people that are starting to build a product. So I think it's good to hear that it can be a pretty painless part of the whole process.
Yeah, I think it's just on how you guys are great at kind of guiding us through that whole process and thinking about how the user needs to experience it in a really simplistic way, so that it's easily understandable. And there have been things, Mark, that we've been either, in touch with on the phone or texting or email or whatever. So I never feel like I'm alone, and I'm not an IT specialist, right? Like, I don't know all the behind the scenes stuff, but I know enough to get users to a certain point before I say, hey, I need some help.
Yeah. So knowing that a lot of the customer support that you provide, some are things that you can help, some have technical support needs. And like you said, you're not a developer. And Mark, I know you're on the front lines of that for Mutually Human. Can both of you kind of walk through how that relationship works from a support and technical support aspect?
Yeah. For me, from my perception of it is really just, I've got certain skills that I know the tool can do, or I know the process, or have learned from other types of problems that have been the same, that I can help provide a level of support. And at any point in time when I am stuck and I have no other things to try, simple email or text to Mark has been super effective. And, from your end, how does that work, Mark?
Yeah, no, from our end, it's, like you said, it's we really, provide you with an easy means to get a hold of me, right? Like you can call me, text me, email me. And, for the most part, outside of me, being tied up in a meeting or something, I'll get back to you pretty quick. And get our team looking at whatever the issue is and solved. And, I would say, I feel like 60-70% of the time that question is even just results in not any actual development work to do, but just an understanding of what's going on, or helping to find where someone put the wrong email in somewhere, or things like that. And so, we just sort of try to make ourselves available to you whenever you need, so that if you get to those things where you're stuck and you're at the end of your knowledge or capabilities in the system, we can sort of peek behind the doors and behind the curtain and see what's going on.
Yeah, for sure.
Mark, from a technical standpoint and with support for BU and other clients, what are some typical things that you see come through?
Yeah, I mean, so, a lot of, Danielle's alluded to it a little bit already, but a lot of what we'll see is people struggling to get accounts set up and connected. And oftentimes, I swear it's got to be like 80% of the time, like it's, someone has a typo in their email address, somebody or somewhere, and nobody's noticed through like 3 or 4 different people. And like, okay, that's why we can't get this email to come through. Or often too, some of BU's customers end up having some pretty stringent rules in terms of their internal networks and email systems. Mm-hmm. And so getting emails to come through from a new automated system can sometimes be a little bit of a chore, working with their IT directly to get those email addresses whitelisted and things like that. So that can be a little bit of a pain. I mean, I have to guess that like 90% of the issues will revolve around some of the email pieces, and the vast majority of them, at least that come all the way to us, are email related.
For sure. I would 100% agree with that.
All right, Danielle. So overall, looking back at onboarding and training and supporting your users, is there anything that you wish you would have known before you started this role?
That's a really introspective question when I think about that. And I think you don't know what you don't know, and that's always going to be the case. But I think, with a little bit of thinking, forward thinking and planning, and I think over planning is always better than not planning enough. So I think that when you are, developing, being maybe a little bit, I don't even know the word I'm looking for right now, but really thinking about how you can provide the best support, the best material, the best everything, plan ahead, over plan for trainings, make sure that you're providing the, utmost care for your clients and as high touch as of an experience as that can be, I think, can create raving fans for your organization. So, I don't know that there's something that I wish I knew before, because I think you can always look back and think, I didn't know that, so I wouldn't have known how to handle X, Y, or Z. But really having your wits about you in terms of, that the problem is going to get solved. It's all a learning process along the way. I think that's going to be the mindset to take.
What's something that you're really proud of, either that you've done or your company has done in terms of the space of onboarding, training and support? And I know part of it's that human touch, but is there anything else that you're really proud of as an organization or as an individual?
I think that our way of trying to make things as unmistakable and different from other people's experiences as possible is probably the thing that I'm most proud of. And it doesn't have to be a super costly way of doing something. It can literally be a handwritten note at a really, inopportune time, or a time where you are doubting whether or not this client is, considering you still or not, or whatever it might be. We've had a number of things happen during sales processes, like, someone's like, this just happened and I couldn't get to you. I couldn't get back to you. So, we've sent flowers to people. We've sent, Starbucks gift cards to people after, as a thank you, because that's on UMAP. So I think just putting that spin on things is something that we do really well. And I think that it does make us stand out.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Danielle, for joining us. I really appreciate it and telling us a little bit about what you guys do there. If anyone listening has any needs for building their own software or has existing software tools that they've been using and supporting, and it's not as easy and simple as Danielle makes it seem to be, get in touch. We're happy to help out. You can schedule a free consultation on our website or just email me, mark@mutuallyhuman.com. And we're always happy to help. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.